The film Matinee next Sunday afternoon finds Errol Flynn swashbuckling his way through a private war against the Spanish might and main as the Seahawk, and that's at 2:15 next Sunday afternoon.
Later next Sunday, the start of a new series of the Antiques Roadshow, presented by Hugh Scully.
If the crowds here at Poole in Dorset are anything to go by, we are in for a very interesting series of the Antiques Roadshow, and a very successful one too. Plenty of people here with their parcels containing we know not what, but we'll soon discover. Paintings and prints, I've no doubt, porcelain, silver, furniture, arms and armour. During the course of the next few weeks, this series will touch on virtually every aspect of the antiques world. We begin here at Poole in Dorset, and we take the roadshow south to Jersey and the Channel Islands, north to Aberdeen in Scotland, and to several other towns and cities in between. So we very much hope that you'll join us for the new series of the Antiques Roadshow.
And that starts next Sunday at 5:50 on BBC One.
At 6:40, Songs of Praise this week comes from the market town of Kirkby Lonsdale. Before that, rape is the subject of Streetwise with Sarah Kennedy in 10 minutes. That's after the news, now on BBC One at 6:20 with Jan Leeming.
South Africa's ambassador to Britain is recalled over the arrest of 4 South Africans here. Marais Stein is returning home for urgent consultations. 4 South Africans and a Briton have been charged with illegally exporting military equipment to South Africa. South Africa's Foreign Minister, Piek Botha, said the ambassador's recall was linked with the arrests but gave no other details. The 4 South Africans appeared in court in Coventry yesterday and were remanded in custody. The British businessman was allowed bail. The charges they face involve anti-missile weaponry. Michael Sullivan reports from the South African Embassy in London.
It looked at first as if the prosecutions in Coventry were concerned with no more than the alleged infringement of export regulations. But today's events have taken things a good deal further, with the 4 accused South Africans in prison on remand and the 5th accused man, a Briton, out on bail. The South African Foreign Minister, Mr. Pukpuerta, announced from Cape Town that the ambassador to London would be recalled. That's unusual. The South African government isn't usually so quick to react to allegations of impropriety or illegality in other countries, and the recall itself acknowledges the potential gravity of the situation. Here at the South African Embassy in Trafalgar Square in London, it was acknowledged that the ambassador was to go home, but not when, and no more details were announced.
As the miners' strike enters its 4th week, union officials in Nottinghamshire say they might have to reconsider their decision not to join the stoppage. Train drivers there will stop moving coal from 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. 200 members of ASLEF have backed their executive's call. The effect on power stations, though, won't be immediate, as Mike Mackay reports.
Most of the Midlands' 22 power stations were busy this weekend, producing the electricity that meets 1/3 of the total need of England and Wales. As railway footplate men prepared to black the power stations, diggers and bulldozers were quarrying into the 250,000 tonnes of coking coal at Donington Park. In a railway sidings, wagons containing what may be the last 1,000-tonne payload to be delivered here for some time. Right up till Friday night, coal trains were shuttling into power stations like Ratcliffe-on-Soar in the Trent Valley, one of the biggest of its kind in Europe. At peak demand, it can turn to gas turbine generators to boost supply. It's modern, efficient and loaded with coal.
The generating board refused to discuss the quantities of coal at individual power stations. But here at Ratcliffe-on-Soar, the unofficial estimate is 1 million tonnes, enough for 2 months burning full out. Yet, with the summer approaching and careful eking out, it's thought that tips like this one could last 3 or even 4 months.
The stockpile's been building up for several years, boosted recently by the continuing output of Nottinghamshire miners. One of their officials admitted today they might have to think again following the decision of Nottingham loco men to support the ASLEF ban.
The miners' leader, Arthur Scargill, says trade union support for the strike has rallied because the government has endorsed the police response to picketing, and that, he says, will now increase.
I think that picketing will not subside. I think that picketing will, in fact, increase. And I'm convinced, in my mind, that the reaction amongst ordinary trade unionists will be incensed at the attitude of the police and the state in the way that they've intervened in this dispute. And that's one of the reasons why the other trade unions have come to the assistance of the NUM.
3 men are missing after an explosion at the British Steelworks at Lackenby near Middlesbrough. It happened in a cellar under the coil plate mills where the men were working. The explosion ruptured water pipes flooding the basement. A police underwater search unit has been called in. About 40 people were rescued from Dartmoor during the night as snow, sleet and high winds swept the area. Several were treated for exposure. A rescue team found 6 children near Princetown. They were flown by helicopter to hospital in Plymouth. Most of those rescued were practising for next month's 10 Tours walk on the moor. Chris Loughlin reports.
The sudden deterioration in conditions on the moor last night caught many young walkers by surprise. Rescuers, out all night searching, described the weather as appalling. Visibility was so bad at one point that an RAF rescue helicopter had to turn back. Ambulances and police Land Rovers were hampered by ice and snow on roads. At Oakhampton Police Station, 2 schoolboys struggled to raise the alarm after one of their party, trapped on the highest part of the moor, began to suffer from hypothermia.
I was dizzy and lost my memory a couple of times and fell sometimes. We pitched tent and I got inside a sleeping bag with sleeping bags around me, and 2 went off with our grid reference to the police station in Oakhampton, and a helicopter was sent out to us.
Labour leaders are again pressing for answers from Mrs Thatcher about her son and his business affairs. Mark Thatcher left for America saying he'd done nothing wrong. The Oman University contract was, he said, just an excuse to get at my mother. But Peter Shaw, shadow leader of the Commons, said it was astonishing that Mrs Thatcher should leave it to her son to deal with the criticism. Mark may be naive, he said. She certainly is not. Jack Howarth, who played Albert Tatlock in Coronation Street, has died. He was 88. He'd been in the Granada TV series since it started in 1960. The 2000th episode of Coronation Street was made 4 years ago. Then Jack Howarth and Doris Speed, who plays Annie Walker, were asked how long they'd expected the street to last when they first joined.
13 weeks, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. 3 weeks originally.
13?
No, 3.
I was told 13.
And the journalist and broadcaster Rennie Cutforth has died. He was 75. He was a regular contributor to television and national newspapers. And as a reporter for BBC Radio News, he'll probably be best remembered for his coverage of the Korean War. Hello Dandy returned home in triumph today. The Grand National winner went back to the Gordon Richards stables at Greystoke in Cumbria. It's not the first time the village has been able to toast a national winner. The 1978 winner, Lucius, was also from Greystoke. The jockey, Neil Doughty, joined Hello Dandy in the village for the celebrations, along with the horse's owner, Richard Shaw.
He looks a lot better than I feel. Yeah, he looks absolutely fantastic, recovered very quickly, and looks like he could almost go round again.
Hello Dandy's only refusal of the weekend. He turned his nose up at the traditional pint of beer. And that's it for the moment. I'll be back with more news at 10:05.
Good evening to you. It's been more like the 1st of January than the 1st of April today in some parts of the country, with snow showers around. And indeed it looks as if it's going to stay cold. This high pressure won't move very far, and it'll continue to feed these northeasterly winds to many parts of the country. We can see the showers on the satellite picture. You can see them, some there over the highlands of Scotland, but moving further south, Ireland and northern England, not very many showers, but then the further south we come, so the heavier and more frequent those snow showers do become. So as far as tonight's concerned, we've obviously got those showers, as you've just seen, to contend with, most of them over England and Wales, but the ones that are filtering through to central and western parts will tend to die away. They'll keep going, though, in these eastern counties. So for many places, a dry, clear night, but a very cold night, a widespread and quite sharp frost. Tomorrow, a good deal of sunshine, I think, in most parts of the country. Indeed, many places will be dry, and with the wind somewhat lighter and that sunshine, I don't think it'll feel quite so cold. In this southeastern corner, though, there will still be some sleet and snow showers, and there that wind will still have quite a bite to it. Well, that's all. A very good evening to you.
Sunday evening entertainment on BBC One. At 7:15, one by one, something is worrying the sheep, and it's not a dog that's loose on the moors.
Now, you'll need to get your things together for this lion hunt of yours. You better wrap up well. You're going in the zoo van with Paddy Riley.
Oh, not Riley.
At 8:05, Mastermind, and 4 more contenders answer questions on such diverse subjects as the Medici and Swallows and Amazons. At 8:35, Dynasty and a shock for Fallon and Adam.
Fallon, Adam. Well, isn't this wonderful? I'm so happy that you two finally met. Well, what do you think of your good-looking brother?
At 9:20, That's Life visits London Zoo to meet a particularly talented pet, their newest acquisition, just out of quarantine. At 10:20, Heart of the Matter accompanies a group of flying pickets as the miners' strike enters its 4th week. At 10:55, International Motor Racing from Silverstone. Today's race in the 12-round 1984 Formula 2 Championship. And at 11:35, The Sky at Night probes the secret lives of the stars. Sunday evening on BBC One.
The Money programme on BBC Two shortly reports on IBM's plans to dominate the microcomputer business and looks at the property market, at how the property market could help to revive Britain's second most popular sport, greyhound racing. Here on BBC One, Sarah Kennedy continues the series offering advice on how to deal with attacks on our property, privacy and person. The subject of Streetwise this week is rape.